Hello and welcome to my new podcast, Air and Space Stories. Are you ready for an exciting news? Fasten your seatbelts and enjoy your flight. With me, Cinzia. This is episode 2 of season 2. Asteroid and planet mining. In the last few years, we have seen a huge return of space activity, thanks, of course, to the private companies, which helped NASA to replace Soyuz and the Russian program in carrying astronauts to the space station and go back to the moon with the Artemis program. In this mission in particular, Elon Musk's SpaceX played a key role. His company, in fact, will not only be responsible for carrying astronauts into orbit, as we already saw with the Mission 1, but also to build the launcher to reach the Gateway orbiting station, and finally, it will carry crews back and forth to the moon. Clearly, a supply chain has been developing around space programs for quite some years now. The so-called new space economy, to which many companies participate and from which they derive benefits in terms of technological and professional growth, increased employment, and so on. In order to carry out a mission, for example, NASA relies on many external companies, as said before. Everyone has to do his part. The scientists, astronomers and astrophysics in providing data regarding the celestial bodies like asteroids, comets, planets, protoplanets, etc., but also the suppliers of raw materials, rather than those who process such materials. Think, for example, of the James Webb Space Telescope mirrors. Next to these activities carried out on Earth to explore space, we have been talking about space mining, like asteroid mining or planet mining, for many years, I guess 30 at least. But what does asteroid and planet mining mean exactly? In short, space mining means extraction of valuable material from celestial objects in outer space. First of all, mining will be essentially to supply raw materials to astronauts on site once they will be established on another planet, like the Moon or Mars or another one. But also, and most importantly, to supply the population of Earth with those materials that are already in short supply. We have already seen, for example, during the pandemic or the war, how rare earth metals, the REE, now used anywhere and mainly in batteries, cell phones and computers, basically in all chips. Or some other raw materials like iron, for example, have created big problems for the production in Apple and other IT giants, as well in Tesla, to name just a few. In fact, China, devastated by the COVID, is one of the richest countries in these rare earth materials, as well as Ukraine, destroyed by war, possess many mineral resources. In addition, the metals we need most, like iron, I said, or nickel and platinum on Earth, are located only in the surface, which is the Earth's crust, and in small quantities. In fact, the largest amount is concentrated in the core, because during the formation of our planet, heavy metals were drawn into the center. Think then how it would cost to mine at that deepness in the ground. And this explains the success of space mining projects. Since ages, the literature addressed this topic. In late 18th century, Jules Verne, an author I admire very much, and a precursor of all that space has become today, told in one of his novels about a mission which aimed to capture an asteroid. It was believed to be rich in gold, using a gravitational wave generator in order to land it on Greenland. Amazing how it closely became to what we are trying to accomplish today. Nowadays, there are several nations, not very much actually, that have already done some mining or are in process of doing so. Regarding the moon, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, had designed and launched a rover named Rashid with Elon Musk's Falcon 9 to study the surface of our satellite. India, for example, has launched a couple of missions, Chandrayaan, whose rover is intended to analyze the surface composition. The third one will be launched, for example, in 2024 in collaboration with Japan to study the polar ice caps. Moreover, China has a full-fledged lunar program, we know that. And finally, the United States, of course, which recently launched the first of 7 Artemis missions with the ultimate goal of establishing a stable lunar base as an outpost for planetary exploration, like Mars. Speaking of Mars, again, the United States, but also Europe, will try to exploit the ice on this planet, concentrated mainly in the polar ice caps, to extract hydrogen and oxygen, and to use the planet's wind to produce electricity through turbines, as we do today on Earth. Allow me a small parenthesis. Elon Musk, in his imagination, has already found a way to terraform Mars, as we call it in the 90s. That is, to allow plants to grow in order to achieve a breathable atmosphere for humans. His solution is to drop nuclear bombs at the ice formations. This will warm enough the planet, causing the much-hated greenhouse effect, generating enough water to sustain the small plants. Mosses initially, which in turn will produce oxygen through photosynthesis, generating a virtuous cycle that will lead in a few decades, maybe centuries, to the creation of a real atmosphere. Certainly, these materials found in outer space will supply the settlement colony. Also regarding Mars, there's an important Italian project which involved the Italian Space Agency and Enel, based on nuclear power production. Producing energy in situ is a leitmotif in space exploration because a group of inhabitants on a planet consumes a lot of energy. For this reason, there are a number of experiments underway that will lead to a more rapid evolution of the nuclear fusion technology. We are quite lucky because, for example, on Mars there is abundance of the helium-3 isotope, and on Earth is unobtainable, which due to its stability makes the fusion process safer and more efficient. Initially, of course, these reactors will be rather small in size, capable of heating the equivalent of a small building. However, in the future, they will be able to produce few megawatts of energy. In addition, such reactors will have to be protected, for example, by building an infrastructure using the abundant regolith, or by placing them in canyons or naturally protected areas. The development of nuclear power will also bring enormous benefits on spacecraft traveling to more distant planets. Some projects involve the use of Americium-241, which is a subproduct of plutonium bombardment. Coming back to the main topic of this episode, that is asteroid mining, Japan has already launched 2 probes called Hayabusa, and we will soon launch a third one, with the aim of collecting samples on various asteroids. The United States follows suit with the OSIRIS-REx, sent toward asteroids for the purpose of acquiring data about the formation of our solar system. I guess that all these missions have space mining development in mind. Finally, there are already a dozen startups that have jumped into the business, even though this technology is still at the early stage of development. But why are so many projects involving asteroids? Compared with Earth, for example, they have the great advantage of being naked because they result from several collisions between celestial bodies occurred during the formation of the solar system itself. Basically, they are cores of metals traveling free in space. This is the reason why they are sought after. The experts assure that it will be easier and hopefully cheaper to mine in space than to dig hundreds of kilometers to the center of Earth. Of course, there are asteroids more interesting than others. For example, the so-called 1986 DA, which contains 85% of metal like iron and nickel. But the most interesting above all is the 16 Psyche, which contains iron, nickel and gold. Actually, the latter one became famous when the scientists revealed the internal composition. It appears that it contains about 10,000 tons of gold and 100 tons of platinum, giving it an estimated value of $10 trillion, which is a huge amount of money. I guess this justifies the efforts put into the journey to reach the asteroid, the action of deviating it to a closer orbit to the Earth, and the mining itself. Each asteroid that might fall within the mining target must be studied in detail before planning an actual mission. The best choice is asteroids that are convenient to reach, typically those with a smaller orbit than the Moon's. Next, we have to figure out its composition, sending probes that reach the surface with laser beam that, depending on how they are reflected, reveal the type of metal inside. For example, if we receive the wavelength of iridium belonging to the same group as platinum, it means that within the asteroid we will find that metal. Everything I told you here is very interesting, and maybe you also think that there is a problem related to legality in space. For example, what rights do have these countries to invest money to grab precious metals or claim a conquered portion of a planet? Also, there is a geopolitics issue, maybe I should say a space geopolitics issue, because states such as India, United Arab Emirates, China, United States and Japan are already operating without clear rules. I did not mention Russia so far because at the moment, although it possesses the necessary know-how, it has no means. However, to counter the United States, the most advanced in this type of mission, Russia has made agreements with China. So, in terms of legality, where are we? In the 60s, at the time of space development, a treaty was signed, and it's called the Outer Space Treaty, initially by Russia and US, and then by other 100 countries, that provide some guidelines on how those states engaged in space activities should behave. However, these are just guidelines, rather vague, and therefore they're interpretable. I will let you read each article of this treaty, just search on the web. Then there is another association, the COPUOS, or the Committee of Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, which groups now 95 countries whose task is to oversee the space programs of various countries and keep records of space objects launched into space. The organization also provides funding for the projects of nations that want to establish a space program peacefully. In the future, it may also deal with the legal aspects of such mission. Regarding the United States, you have to know that in 2015 Barack Obama signed a treaty, the Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act, to regulate domestic space activities, in which he authorized the participation of private companies in space programs. And this is, to me, the key enabler, because it also through this choice that Elon Musk entered the space program. Not only that, but private companies also allow NASA to grow as part of a healthy competition that develops technologies and allow to speed up and improve processes. You know that in government agencies, bureaucracy slowed down a lot. Finally, to my surprise, a small Luxembourg in recent years have been addressing space legality, establishing some rules and positioning itself as one of the leading countries in Europe in this area. Hopefully, in the next future, other countries will proceed similarly. Even though this emergency industry has the potential to revolutionize the way we extract resources and could have a major impact on our economy or technology and even on our survival as a species, many other steps need to be done. Above all, regulating the space race as much as possible is mandatory because we know that human beings are not naturally inclined to agree peacefully, especially when economic, political, or geopolitical interests are at stake. We should avoid recreating the current situation on Earth with countries at war or constantly threatening each other. To go into space to repropose this absurd paradigm would mean thwarting all the efforts made by humankind to secure extraplanetary progeny. To me, only Elon Musk really seems to believe in this project there is in making mankind a multiplanetary species. I hope many others will follow his example. I also hope that you enjoy this episode and that you will share it with your friends who are passionate about asteroids, planets, and space exploration in general. Remember also to read the article in Italian on my blog, cinziamacchi.it/blog. It will come out very shortly. It was a really big pleasure to have you on board. I hope you had an enjoyable flight and therefore hope to see you on the next one as well. Bye bye from Cinzia.